What's up, Dolphins? I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries, and the last one left. What does that mean? We'll get into that in just a minute here as we get going on your Wednesday.
Hey, Jeff Zgonina on a Wishing Wednesday. Wishing I had $125 million to buy 1%.
I am also starting a fundraising round for 1% of the Dolphins.
GoFundMe.
We'll do a YouTube subscription. So you guys do the premium subs, and we'll buy 1% of the Dolphins.
All right, let's do it, guys. All of us together.
Fins up. It's the Dolphin Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphin Squad Show starts now.
With Kyle Krabs and Jeff Zgonina, Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, and your team every day. We need to open the bidding, right? We need to open the GoFundMe, whatever it is. We need to open everything we have to get a piece of a sports franchise. It's just unbelievable, Kyle. When I think about this in Z, $125 million for 1%. Now, I was not a math major at the University of Miami, but even I could tell you that's a $12.5 billion valuation, right, for the Miami Dolphins. And not just the Dolphins, the stadium, the Grand Prix, Miami Grand Prix, the tennis tournament, blah, 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 all the other things. But this is really mainly about the Dolphins and the stadium, guys. And, you know, when you look at the sale here by Stephen Ross at 85 years old, give the guy credit. I was talking to Z about this before the show. At 85 years old, how many people are going to be going gung-ho, still trying to win like Stephen Ross is? And, you know, Lin Bin, the co-founder and vice chairman of a popular consumer electronics company in China called Xiaomi, I think I'm saying that right, guys, is now 1% owner of the Miami Dolphins. But that the numbers are what stood out to me, Z. You've been in this league forever. So many teams. You've seen everything, man. But 1% for 125, that's insane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these organizations just keep going up, and up. And, you know, it's going to be a telltale when Seattle finally sells, right? I don't know what they put the number on, you know, the asking price, but it's going to be above it no matter what it is because, you know, people want these teams, you know, groups. It's all groups now because it's hard to find. There's only a certain few that can afford the $12.5 billion, you know. And then Seattle, you know, it could be one person out there. You know, I know, you know, Bezos wants a piece of a team at some point. He can go out and pay for it on his own. So, you know, who knows what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting. You know, I can't wait to see that sale and who gets it and how much it's for because everybody, all 31 others are going to be smiling because they just went up a couple billion.
A ton of money, Kyle. I mean, at 85 years old, Stephen Ross is going to pocket what? About, let's see, we'll get that $125 million for 1%. His stake of that is everything but the 13% or whatever it was that he sold in 2024. And the thing that stands out to me, Kyle, about that wasn't even 2 years ago. And the valuation was 8.1. It went up 4.4 in less than 2 years.
Yeah, your value is always, it's like draft prospects, right? Your draft stock is what somebody's willing to use to draft you, right? And your stock as a franchise is what somebody's willing to pay for you. And look, you go back to when Stephen Ross first bought the majority share of the team back in 2009, the valuation was $1.1 billion. So from 2009 to 2026, 17 years, the value of the Dolphins as a franchise increased at twice the rate of what the Dow Jones did in the stock market over that same period of time. So you want to talk about big money, big investors, big business, places to invest your money with this machine that is like almost too big to fail when you really think about the NFL and how big it has become. And now it's becoming a global market. Like, I think for the values of these franchises, it's just going to continue to skyrocket. And I think that is what's impressive about what Stephen Ross has done. You say what you will about the on-field product of the football team, but the fact that the Miami Open and the F1 race and the investments that went into Baptist Health and the investments that went into Hard Rock Stadium to make it this kind of sports entertainment expo that, like, you know, I think it's a big deal that Stephen Ross decided to, you know, he's going to have his daughters as the heirs of the franchise. And, you know, it almost makes that entire franchise of sporting events, keeping it in the family, it's going to really run itself with the kind of money that's going to be coming into it. Because Stephen Ross said he makes more on the F1 race than he does in like the entire football season because of how big it is. So, the business element of the entire properties that Stephen Ross owns and has managing down there is it's going to be great news for any time an investor wants to come in and put some money into the Dolphins as a franchise.
And we want to see that translate into success on the field. Obviously, you've been voted the #1 organization again off the field by the players, and you have this amount of money at $12.5 billion. By the way, quick side note, either one of you guys want to take a guess how much Joe Robbie, the original owner of the Miami Dolphins, sold the team for? Finalized in 1994, the year I moved to Miami, and the first time I saw my guy, Dan Marino, right there behind me in person, right? The comeback game against the Pats, the 4th down throw to all that happened in 94. Well, and that was the year they lost to San Diego on the missed field goal by Stoyanovich. And you remember, I don't mean to bring up bad memories. You guys all remember, that was the year that Wayne Huizenga bought the team from Joe Robbie. You guys care to guess the price tag in 1994?
$350.
Kyle?
I'll say 150 for what was 1% now.
It was $109 million valuation in 1994. That was the valuation. And I mean, that's over 30 years ago. But think about what Mr. H and everybody loved Wayne Huizenga. I mean, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. All of us in the media loved him. He was always super cool to me, and he'd always do the interview. He cared so much about South Florida and about South Florida sports fans. And just that jump. And I know it's 30 years, but the NFL, Z, and while you've been in the league, man, since you came into the league, right around that time is when the numbers started going bananas. At what point in your career did you realize, Z, like this is like literally you think it could be capped here, but then all of a sudden you realize it can go that much further, and here it goes, man.
Well, like I mean, we talked about the other week. I think the salary cap was 302 now million.
Yeah.
And in 94 it was 34 million. That's like not even like. Majority of the guys on the team make that in a year. You know what I'm saying? That was the salary cap in 94. And it's just crazy how it's gone up and up and up. League minimum in 93 was 109. How do I know that? Because that's what I made. My rookie year was 109. The year before was 96,000, not million, thousand, and now it's league minimum for a rookie is like 650, I think, 700 maybe. I don't know. It's up there. It's above 5. I know that.
Yeah, if you're undrafted, it's like 7.5, and then if you're the rookies, like your minimum salary for rookies is you get a $880,000 salary plus if you get a signing bonus on top of that with your rookie contract.
Yeah, so I mean it's just it's crazy. Because my last year in the league, the veteran minimum was 820.
Wow, so, 820.
Yeah, now it's 09. So.
It's crazy when you think about the money involved, and we're getting to the point where individuals aren't going to own teams anymore, Kyle. I mean, we're at the point where it's going to be groups, it's going to be funds, it's going to be a ton of minority owners, shareholders, all kinds of things that are happening to where professional sports in general, we're hearing things and things are being said out there like you'll never see individual owners of teams again. It'll always be a group with a figurehead. Yeah,
and then you have they just gave permission for private equity not that long ago to come in, and the Dolphins were a part where it was that sale that was announced at the end of 24 and finalized in 25 was a 10% ownership stake to a private equity firm. So, all kinds of changes, and it's I think you're dead on talking about ownership groups, and when you're getting into the stratosphere of who has the liquidity to do that kind of purchase, there's not a lot of folks on the face of the planet who can have that to throw around. So you're going to need a few to kind of pull together. And I think the Seahawks will be a really fascinating litmus test off of the Super Bowl win, right? It's like they don't have F1 and Miami Open and the live events like Hard Rock Stadium does, but the on-field product obviously is leaps and bounds, and they've been consistently competitive and 2 Super Bowls in the last, 15 years. So really interested to see how they end up shaking out with their ownership sale.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, though, but that sale, that money goes to the city, doesn't it? It goes to like a charity or something. I don't think it goes to the family.
Based off the Allen family
The way he
like
set it up,
pension,
you know,
I believe
trust,
so.
yeah.
I believe that's right.
because that's why the sister was told she had to sell it at a certain time.
Hmm.
And it's all supposed to go like to charity or something, which is unbelievable for that charity or charities or whatever it's going to, because you're getting billions, which is a great, unbelievable thing that, you know, Allen did, you know, in the long run. But just to have the foresight to do that is crazy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And you think about coming full circle on the Dolphins conversation, the reasons why Joe Robbie's family had to sell the team, right? There were no plans in place for the massive taxes that they had to pay to keep the team, and the stadium that he had built with his name on it, and the franchise that he owned and brought to prominence with Don Shula was just taken away. And that's the cold, hard reality. And, you know, there's a lot of fans around the league going, I wish that would happen to my franchise and my organization. You know, speaking of which, the Cardinals are one of them. And the whole Kyler Murray thing we're going to touch on a little bit later in the show just got a lot more interesting, guys. But I want to put a bow on this conversation. When you start thinking about the money, Z, I want to hit you first on this. I mean, we're talking about like $125 million for 1%. When you're a player and you're negotiating a contract and you're just seeing that, I know there's a cap, I know there's all kinds of stuff out there, but the NFLPA has got to be just licking their chops right now, man, seeing these numbers.
Again, that doesn't trickle down to the players. It's what's going to trickle down is the next CBA or the next TV contract. That's how the player money goes up, is the TV. Now Netflix wants more games. That'll, you know, now you're like, ooh, and the PA, you're like, ooh, let's get this done. Let's get this going, because the cap's going to jump even bigger, you know, when they get the TV revenue. Yeah. That's where they split it. You know, way back when, the one CBA that got screwed up, and you know, the players lost a lot of leverage and a lot of money and a lot of other things, you know, which we're getting back little by little, because they're adding more games and they're doing other stuff. So we get little tidbits coming there. But when Gene Upshaw was the union guy, majority of the owners were afraid of Gene. And Gene, the players had the big stick in the room. The players had a better percentage of the TV revenue than the owners. For years, the players were above it all. I think we had over 50% of the TV
53,
money.
Wasn't it? See,
yeah.
I thought it was 53 for a while.
Yeah. So, and then somehow D. Smith lost that in the negotiations during that strike in 2010, I think, because I was out of the league.
Yeah.
09, they're doing the war chest, trying to take all our money to make the war chest. And I was like, I'm retiring, dude. I ain't giving you my money. You know, I ended up giving my dues. You know, they kept my dues, but I still haven't gotten back, you know, but it is what it is. But, you know, again, when Gene was the man, you know, people were kind of scared of him, you know, as ownership, because he didn't negotiate. He kind of like said, hey, this is what it is. He'd bend a little bit, but this is how it is. And then, you know, because of that, I thought that, you know, our Dolphin guy, Trace Armstrong, would take over for Gene. But somehow, you know, he didn't get the votes, and they went to D. Smith. And, you know, we had some rocky years off that deal, because I think he signed a deal that I don't think the guys really voted for. He just took a deal, and it was less than what we probably could have got. And it took us a lot of years to get to where we are now, money-wise.
Well, and that really came down to not wanting to miss games, right? If I remember correctly, that was like when all the chips were on the table, it's like, hey, we're not willing to miss games, so we're going to take the best offer we can at that point.
Yeah, and we should have missed games. I mean, we just should have. The product that's on the field, you can't just go out and manufacture with scab players like they did way back when, you know, and you just can't do that. There's just too much involved now. The game has progressed, you know, because of TV and, you know, internet and all that. We could have probably held out a few weeks and got a better deal, I believe.
And with all the new players, like you said, Netflix, Amazon, we're talking huge money worldwide. And Amazon's a big part of what the league's doing. And then you got the Bezos angle and wanting to be an owner. And it's interesting, right? But when I think about this, see, I just have to put a wrap on this by asking you one thing. I know there's a hard cap, right? So you say the money doesn't trickle down to the players on something like this. 125 mil goes to Ross and the other owners, right? But isn't it true that it can be, and you guys hope, like in the future, right? Things like the pension, the medical, the more money that comes in, you can't pay players more against a hard cap, right? But you can take care of them once they're done and significantly elevate things like the pension and the post-career medical, right?
Well, the pension is capped by the IRS, so you can only get so much there, right?
Okay.
And then the medical, though, is the big thing. That's always been my sounding point, and I've always asked when I was a current player and even as a retired player was, let's get medical for life, like baseball. I mean, you put it at you cap it at so many years, not just all vested players like baseball. You have to go 10 years or X amount of games to be fully vested and get get a good pension and medical for your life. And I wish they did it for us NFL guys, especially the money that's coming out now. If we get the 18th game and more overseas games, because that just keeps pumping more and more money into it. Hopefully when they go back to the collective bargaining agreement here in, I think, 2030 is the next big one that, we get something. I mean, yeah, we have a little fund on the side, the Gene Upshaw fund, but that's a capped number. And, you get a couple big surgeries, some of these guys that don't have insurance or pay your insurance premiums, which keep going up and up every year through that fund, it'll dry up eventually. And that's where I hope that, we get a good, solid, insurance plan. Hopefully it's the same plan that, the players are getting now, because that's a great plan to have, because a lot of guys don't live in that city or that state, and they live but they're able to be in network because of the great insurance plans that they have.
That's great wisdom and knowledge from Jeff Zgonina here on your Dolphin Squad Show. That's Kyle Krabs. He's been so busy with the Combine, Senior Bowl before that, all the league year stuff. It's about to go bananas. It already is bananas. But the Dolphins, since the Tyreek Hill move and the others that they made, it's been quiet in Miami, and we think that's about to change very quickly. It's your Dolphin Squad Show. Kyler Murray gets released by the Cardinals. Should the Dolphins go after QB1? Literally, number one, Kyler Murray. The athleticism is mesmerizing, but the football mind and the desire to play is something that's been questioned with Kyler Murray. But could the price tag be too much for or too little for the Dolphins to never mind. Let's just hit the break, and you know what I mean, guys. It's one of those days. We'll be right back with more of the Squad Show in just a second. Right after I get the chance to talk to you about BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us, right? So take a moment to celebrate a woman in your life who's had a lasting impact. For me, my two grandmothers lived forever, and I can still hear their voices, things in my mind as I'm doing things in my daily life. My mom, my sister, I have a daughter. It's just unbelievable, and we know how much these ladies mean to us, right? So the roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about that they face as mothers, as wives, as leaders in the world, for that matter. So with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if that's not the right fit, switch at any time. It's for all of us. It's a good thing. So check it out. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up. Get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP. BetterHelp.com/lockedon for BetterHelp on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. There we have it, guys. And you guys know what I mean about Kyler Murray, right? There's going to be some teams lined up that nobody wants Kyler Murray at his price tag of $30 million plus, and nobody wants him for anywhere near that number. But for $1.3 million, Kyle Krabs, I don't know that the Dolphins would even have a chance to sign Murray with some of the other teams I've been looking at, but would you at least kick the tires on Kyler?
Yeah, if it stretches out long enough, kind of my school of thought with what you do at quarterback is there has to be some semblance of a possible long-term payoff for me to think that it's the kind of move that you should make. And Kyler at 28 years old is young enough where, if you catch lightning in a bottle, you could justify it as compared to like Derek Carr's 35, Kirk Cousins is 37. There's not older guys, and I'm going to turn 37 next month, but I'm not out there playing, right? Like for quarterbacks and NFL timelines, those guys are towards the end of their run in the NFL. And Kyler has a little bit more life in the window of his age. I agree with the concerns about kind of the execution of the offense. I agree with the concerns about the study clause that was put into his contract that he signed in Arizona, right? Those are real things. But if you want to go cheap. You don't want to trade assets for a player. You don't get Malik Willis. If he is out there and available to sign past when the Malik Willis domino falls and Anthony Richardson gets traded somewhere else for $1.3 million, like, yeah, I'd bring him in, and, you know, you're not on a multi-year deal. You'd be on a 1-year deal for 1.3 and you see how it goes. I don't see the downside there. And I think the biggest argument and downside would be, well, you'd be too good at quarterback and you'd win some games you're not supposed to. They're going to take swings to upgrade every spot on the roster, right? And I think from a physical skill set, there is a point in which I think it's something you could advocate for, but to be transparent, when you include Willis and a few other names that you could maybe do a pick swap to trade for, Kyler would probably be like 7th on my list of options. Like, he's not very high up on my personal list.
All right, there you go. What about you, Z?
Yeah, you know, I'd have to like really study his game. I think he fits, you know, Bobby Slowick's type of offense. You know, I mean, just knowing Bobby and where he's worked and who he's worked with, and, you know, been on staffs with, and it just doesn't seem like it's really his type of quarterback, you know, skill set. Now, I could be wrong. Again, I don't really study quarterbacks, but I just going off of who he had in Houston and who was out in San Francisco when he was there, and it. You know, that wasn't really, you know, Murray, you know, to a T.
Kind of reminds me of the way Russell Wilson ran his last couple offenses, where very turnover adverse to the point where we'll like try to work outside of structure. So we don't throw a lot of picks, but as far as like the execution of the concept, and that's such a big thing with the Shanahan branches of offenses, right? Is it's like, we're going to call the play like this. It's going to look like this. And we want you to do this. And if not this, then we want you to do that. And a lot of what it's felt like, that, you know, that was Russ when he got to Denver, and that was like a big sticking point in Denver, and Sean Payton and the friction that they had there. And kind of the same thing where it's like, okay, I'm looking for big plays. And if not, I'm just going to take completions to not turn the ball over, but I'm throwing the ball way short of the sticks. It's very feast or famine in the passing game, or we're getting outside of structure using our legs. That I could see, if you are a play caller who calls with an intent of, I'm not going to let him go out and make things happen, but I'm anticipating what the defensive coverage is and the response is going to be to what we're calling, and we want to execute X or Y, I could see that kind of being not the best of fits.
That's a great way to put it. The athleticism is obviously mesmerizing, but when you look at Kyler Murray, came into the league, accounted for 32 touchdowns as a rookie, 38 the next year, 34 the year after that. But then everything started to go downhill. 22, 23, the numbers really dipped. And then 24 had a nice comeback year, 32 more touchdowns that he accounted for and almost 4,000 more yards. And the second highest number of total yards in his entire career. And you're thinking, all right, the athleticism's still there. And I will say this, Kyle, you talk about this all the time with the Jets. You can never count things against anybody all the way if it happened in New York with the Jets, right? Well, same goes for Arizona. I can tell you firsthand from the years I spent as the network postgame show host for the Arizona Cardinals, live at the facility for drafts. And I'm not saying this to brag. It's the Cardinals. What I mean is that is a cesspool. That is a wasteland. The Bidwells should never have had an NFL team. They shouldn't have an NFL team now. And the Cardinals have never really been a completely professional organization in any respect. They're lucky they got Larry Fitzgerald. That's the only credibility they've had. And then they got a lot off the Pat Tillman thing, and he didn't even care about the organization. Point being, everything that happened with Kyler Murray, in my opinion now, throw it out for 1.3. Man, 1.3, Kyle. That for a guy like him with his talent and his ability to turn games and make plays, getting him out of a place like Arizona where it's not even a legit NFL franchise, I don't know, man. It's something about that just seems mesmerizing to me. Having a guy like that in Miami on a premier team with a premier organization in a city like that, I don't know. Something tells me Kyler Murray would light it up in Miami.
Yeah. Well, I sorry, Kyle, but all I can say about this, 1.3, he's going to get more than 1.3.
The Cardinals have to pay it all. They have to pay the rest.
Well, he's still going to get a contract from somebody.
So that's the challenge, right? Is with the guaranteed salary, unless they're willing to pay him more than 36 or whatever it is, then the Cardinals are footing the bill, and all the teams are going to say, we're just going to let Arizona pay the bill and we'll pay minimum salary. So that's what happened with Russ when he got cut from Denver and went to Pittsburgh. Was he was eligible to sign for the minimum because Denver was paying his full salary that year. So
if you paid for more, you got to pay for the whole thing then?
If you pay more, then you got to pay. The other team will get reimbursed the entire 36 that they're owed. And it runs through that team pays Kyler, but then the team pays the other team, and then the rest goes to Kyler.
Yeah. So if I'm him, though, I'm going to pick the team that gives me the best chance to win. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what's interesting with the quarterback carousel, right? Is it Minnesota with, do you trust yourself to go in there and beat out JJ McCarthy with what their offensive infrastructure and Justin Jefferson is and all the picks that they used on the offensive? I mean, they spent crazy money in free agency last year on their offensive line. And for a minimum salary fit, right? Like, I think that makes a ton of sense for Minnesota because they've been, I think, top 3 in cash spend in the NFL the last 2 years. They're spending, I think that last year they spent $350 million on payroll. Like, they're spending out the wazoo. So if Arizona's stuck foot in the bill and it's just a minimum salary, who's the best fit? If I'm Kyler, I think the way you pick Miami is if nobody else is interested. And I'd be surprised. And if I'm Kyler, I think the writing on the wall for this year is kind of, reset, foundational year for Miami, whatever tactful way you want to say. They're not optimized to be as competitive as they possibly can be this year versus some of those other teams.
The Vikings, the Falcons, the Jets. A lot of people think the Jets are the favorite to land Kyler Murray. But again, if he can go anywhere he wants and get that 1.3, I mean, obviously the team has to want him and want to sign him. But if he can make that choice to a degree, Kyle, I would think that of all the possibilities we just talked about, other than the fact that the Dolphins grade at number 1, in terms of off the field stuff, and the fact that you're in Miami, which that's a huge, huge, huge factor to live in Miami and to have no state income tax. Those things are huge. So all those things being said, if the goal is to resurrect your career and have the best possible year, I don't think the Dolphins would have much of a chance in that scenario for Kyler.
You think about Minnesota and what they did for Sam Darnold. Right. And what they kind of by extension indirectly are credited for doing for Daniel Jones. Right. Because Daniel Jones got let go by the Giants and he was on the Vikings practice squad behind Sam Darnold for a year. And then when Sam walked, they kind of wanted to go out and the Vikings wanted to retain Daniel Jones. And I guess they weren't willing to give him like a firm, you're going to compete for the starting job. It was, we drafted JJ McCarthy and he's going to play. And that's why Daniel Jones left and went to Indianapolis, and then he beats out Anthony Richardson. So I think Minnesota's track record is exceptionally strong with reclamation guys. And, if they're not worried about, and Kevin O'Connell, right? Like kind of the same deal, the same branch of offense. So I think that's the other part of it too, is that interest has to be there on their part of it too. And I think they've been reported as having some interest. So I would not put Miami by any means in the driver's seat for Kyler. And I don't know that that's not necessarily the worst thing when you consider what some of Kyler's past track record has indicated he has a hard time with. And then the things that you can do outside of football in South Florida, it's lots of distractions for a guy that needed a study clause in his contract.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And Atlanta, the Falcons are going to be tempted because with Penix coming off with the injury last year, and he might not be all the way ready for camp. And so, with Cousins gone, if I'm the Vikings, all right, I'll ask you guys this right now. If you're any team, but the Vikings in particular, you going Kyler Murray or you going Cousins, Z?
I doubt Cousins goes back up there. So you go Murray. I don't see Cousins taking a repeat in Minnesota at all.
No? Kyle?
Just for the entertainment value, I'll say he does. I'll say
it's you. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, Gries, you want Murray so bad to be a Dolphin. You keep bringing it up. You want him bad, don't you, Gries?
I think that would be the best move they could make. Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
I do. I think Kyler Murray would be the best move for Miami, given the situation. You're not getting Willis. That's a pipe dream. You're going to end up with Quinn Ewers week 1 if you don't do something. I mean, that's how I see it.
They're going to do something. They're going to do something.
But who else? I mean, if you're not going to get Willis and Cousins, I doubt Cousins would come here. Who in their right mind as a veteran looking to resuscitate a dying career would come to this organization right now?
Cousins might do it. Huh? Yeah, might trade. I think they're going to trade for somebody. That's what I think. But I think Cousins would come. I really do.
I mean, Miami, no state income tax. I mean,
Yeah.
at this
End of your career, why not? Be warm.
I don't know.
You know, you
Would you
have
want
some.
Cousins, Z? Would you want it?
I'd take him. Well, yeah.
You would?
Oh yeah, for a year, yeah. Oh yeah. I wouldn't pay him like he's been paid over the years. God, but I mean, he's got a receiver. He's got a good old line. You know that we keep talking about, and a running back. I mean, there's some things on offense, you know, for Cousins to deal with.
That'd be interesting. I think when I say I want Kyler Murray, it's not because I'm delusional or I think he's going to put up huge numbers and be a Pro Bowl player. Not that a Pro Bowl player even matters anymore, but what I mean is with Kyler Murray, he's electric, right? The fans are going to be on the edge of their seats. He can make plays all day long. You'll be in every game because of his athleticism, and you pair him with Achane and Waddle. I think that'd be a good move for them overall, and a guy who's really motivated to prove that, hey, I was in the armpit, as Simeon Rice called it when he accurately described the Arizona Cardinals organization, the armpit of the NFL. I got out, and for $1.3 million, it doesn't even matter if he starts on opening day for that money. I mean, for that amount of money, it's almost like any team that gets him is literally getting a steal.
Yeah, but you can have him.
Yeah, no, Z doesn't like him. And I don't. And Kyle, to Z's point, I don't think that Kyler Murray. I think it's a moot point because everything I've seen and heard, and you know, the new regime in Miami with John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley, that Kyler Murray is definitely not their type of guy.
Yeah, probably not. I think that's what is really fun about the quarterback storyline, though, is they want competition, and I think if you're going to do competition, I expect them to add 2 quarterbacks this offseason. So one of them, I think, will be a vet, and I think they'll draft somebody. And, you know, you throw those guys in the deep end of the pool and say, hey, whoever figures out how to swim fastest, congrats, you're going to start.
All right, it's going to be a lot of fun to see. We'll pick up this conversation on the other side with regard to Tua, right? Because it was his birthday a couple of days ago, and the Dolphins didn't wish him a happy birthday. And in today's era with the modern athlete, hurt feelings. No, I mean, it's over for Tua. And that's why I put on the thumbnail, you know, last one left, because literally everything is being completely redone in Miami. And with that 1% sale for $125 million, the winds of change. And we know it's coming, but we don't know when, and we don't know exactly how. We'll talk about Tua again, and they need to make a move just so we don't have to talk about this anymore. But we'll get to that as well. Quick break. Come on back, and we'll keep it going with your Dolphin Squad Show.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. All right. Hey, continuing on with the squad show, that's Z, that's Kyle, I'm Gries. And, you know, real quick before we continue with that line of conversation, I just want to mention, and it was started by a guy who I love in my life, and it just passed a major milestone, which is the Dolphins Cancer Challenge. I don't know if you guys saw this, surpassed $100 million for Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. And that's something I don't want to get teary-eyed here, but Jim Mandich meant a lot to me. He was a mentor. He was my first boss in this business. He taught me so much, and, you know, used to work on the FIU games because he hired me, Sunday Night Sports Wrap because he hired me. And I learned so much about life from the Mad Dog, Jim Mandich. So I know Jim's riding around with his windows down somewhere when he hears that his little brainchild and what he started is over 100 million, Kyle, and all the, of course, Dolphin fans forever, the legendary Mad Dog, Jim Mandich. All right, Mad Dog, $100 million, Kyle.
Yeah, it's really cool. And that is actually why I start every Locked On Dolphins podcast with All Right Miami is for Bandage. So that's it's really cool to see.
Yeah, God bless the memory. The Mad Dog did so much for this organization, for this team. And I wonder what he'd say. He'd probably scream at me if he heard me say that I want Kyler Murray. What is wrong with you?
Well, that's because
You
you're
know
down in
nothing
Arizona,
about the
Gries.
game.
You did their post game. You're a
This is
hometown
20
homer
years ago,
over
Z.
there.
I hate the
Yeah, but
Arizona
still,
Cardinals.
Yeah, but still, you're down there. You see it all the time.
I mean, they can't wait to get rid of him here, for the record. I mean, the fans in Arizona, they hate Kyler Murray.
And the Dolphin fans want to get rid of Tua.
Yep.
That's just how this business is.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. We
That's
hope,
right.
right? See? But it doesn't
That's
always
right.
work out that way, too. It could be trash all the way around.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You know, again, there's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks. I wish I'd have kept that list. There was a whole list of like possible trade quarterbacks, and not just for the Dolphins, for everybody. You know,
Mhm.
they're listing them all, and there's some interesting names on there. You know, in the next couple of weeks, as soon as the legal tampering can start, we'll start seeing what's going to be happening.
Interesting. I mean, I think that no matter what they do at quarterback, it's going to obviously be a rebuilding year in Miami. But I think this team can be better than a lot of people think it can. And with the right quarterback, don't just throw it away and say, hey, see what Ewers can do. Why not? It's a throwaway season anyway. There's no such thing as a throwaway in the NFL, Kyle. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's too many guys that have so much to play for. And I know that's a very popular perception and talking point is, you know, you got to intentionally be bad and lose all the games and get the early pick. But I just fundamentally have a hard time with trying to perpetuate a winning culture by trying to lose, right? Like that. And the Dolphins did that in 2019. They stripped the roster down and they didn't spend a bunch of money. And like on one hand, like part of it is necessary, but then like that whole, should you have just played Josh Rosen the whole season instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick? Like, you got to evaluate everybody on the roster. And if the quarterback can't operate the offense, you can't evaluate anybody and how anybody's doing their job, because you're getting out there, getting your teeth kicked in, get 120 yards of offense every week. So how many of the best quarterbacks across the NFL, because I know that's the big talking point, is everybody comes back to, you want to lose enough games so you beat a position and draft super high and get a quarterback. How many of the best quarterbacks in the NFL were drafted first overall? How many of the best quarterbacks in the NFL were drafted in the top 3 or in the top 5, right? The argument you could look at, the Dolphins had a chance to pick a different quarterback in 2020, and you could argue they just picked the wrong one, because it could have been Herbert at 6. It could have been Jordan Love at 18. And you had opportunities in good quarterback class, and the one that you picked, unfortunately, he had some strong seasons, but he didn't work out and had a shorter shelf life than some of those other guys because of some of the concerns that existed with him. So I don't see the need to intentionally have this exceptionally poor roster and go out and not try to win football games. And if you win 4 games or 3 games, okay, it's a foundational year. If you win 6 games and it's a foundational year, I'll be even more pumped, because that means those guys kind of came together the way that 19 team did, right? That 19 team didn't have a lot of talent, but the way that they played in the final 9 games of the season, I think they went 5-4 over the final 9. That was really strong performance. And then they parlayed that together, and then the brain trust wasn't on the same page on what to do at quarterback and how to use their draft picks in 2020, and the wheels fell off the bus. So that's why when you go back to alignment and organizational alignment and the people that are running your team being on the same page, that's why I like what they did with the guys that they hired, because you could very clearly tell that they are aligned. So when those big opportunities come, whether they're at 3 overall or 6 overall or 11 overall, you got to trade up from 20 like the Bills did when they went up and got Josh Allen because they traded up. Whatever that looks like, you can make it happen, and you can be on the same page, and you can have a plan for who you want, and it could be the right pick.
Interesting, too, that the Rams just traded for Trent McDuffie, guys, from Kansas City, and they move up to number 13, 2 picks behind the Dolphins, because the Rams are one of those teams people think they might trade that pick to acquire more picks, and the Dolphins in that same group with the Rams. So we might have a lot of action within that first round. Kyle, I'll start with you on that, with teams just trading out of where they are in a year where, some of the positions in the draft, defensive end not being one of them, but some of the positions are a little thin, and next year is widely regarded to be a better draft. Trade down now and get more of those picks accumulated so that you can focus more on the higher picks next year and just build some more depth. And I think the Rams are in that group. The Dolphins are in that group. Might see 3 or 4 of those. Yeah,
I think the Rams trade is bad news for Miami if the Rams are intent on recouping picks, because they pick 13th via Atlanta. They pick 61 and 93, and then they don't pick again until like 205 or something like that. So now they've got like the whole middle of this draft, and maybe they feel like their roster is we're only going to have room to fit a couple guys on the 53. It's not a big deal. We don't need to replace the picks. But if they want to replace picks and they're at 13 and they're trying to move down, that's a potential leverage point that you could lose if you're Miami. If you're trying to entertain the same teams to come up and trade with you, they could say, well, we could pay the Rams and not pay as much, and we could get, just a couple spots within it. So I don't know that that's going to have a direct impact on Miami, but I saw that come through and I said, if you're rooting for a trade down, I think another team that's possibly in the market to trade down that's 2 spots behind you is probably not going to do you any favors.
Yeah. And Z, it's interesting too, because and one of the things that I was reading, I was prepping for today's show with Tua, is that one general manager who didn't say his name. I hate these anonymous, but I love him at the same time. Right. He said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, he said that they would want a number 1 draft pick along with Tua. And they had actually said a number 1 pick with Tua, and they'd take on Tua's contract, but they would take a number 1 pick coming back to make that happen. I thought that was fascinating.
Well, yeah, because you got to eat that freaking cap money, and when you draft a player, the cap number is not that big, and that's what a lot of teams would rather draft players than paying free agency because of that.
Would you get rid of the 11 pick, Kyle, to get rid of Tua in one shot?
No, absolutely
No.
Never, right?
They've said that they're not going to be big free agent players, right? They want to build through the draft. So, to me, the draft pick and 4 years of control is worth exponentially more value to the team with 4 years plus a player option than just offloading $54 million that you can create that cap space, but then at the same time, who are you going to spend it on, right? If you're not going to be like big players in free agency, like you already are down to 27th in cash spend for the season this year for the NFL in 2026 as things currently stand. They're not going to be big spenders. And then, depending on if they don't really sign any multi-year deals going into next year, you add the rookie contracts to it and they'll be bottom 5 in the NFL in cash spending next year. So the cash is going to work itself out. But a premium pick like that in a class where you might be in a position to get one of the last few perceived blue chip guys that's still on the board, I'd be hanging that phone up real fast.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. And I think about Tua and that whole situation with the money and Kyler Murray and his money, and teams can't wait to get rid of these guys. And you get some new life. And I would think that, you guys would agree with me on this one. I think Kyler has way more upside than Tua at this point. And I don't think Tua is going to be the guy who goes somewhere else and tears it up. I think we can safely assume, or I can, at least as safely as you can assume anything, that Tua's years of being near the top of the league and anything are long gone, Z.
Well, for him, I hope not. I hope he still be competitive and he still play some good football down the road. That's just the old player playing or talking now. And, because I hate to see guys, have a bad taste in their mouth or however you want to say it, when they leave a team and they don't have success or anything, because he did have some good years here and he did some good things. I just hope he can get back to that.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think they're polar ends of the spectrum as players, right? When you consider Tua's strength is the thing that we just got done saying that Kyler really doesn't do. And Tua didn't do that this year, which is why the play looked the way that it did. And, maybe a new environment and new players around him and not having guys in your ear or the pressure of the contract and not taking hits, maybe being free of all that kind of would allow him to play a little bit more loose and trust it a little bit more. But it just felt like this year, for whatever reason, he didn't really trust the way that the concept was drawn up. And I think some of that looked like it was maybe, I didn't think his arm had the same pop and it didn't really have a lot of juice to begin with. So those windows felt like they were tighter. So what can you do to bring that back? And if you get that confidence back, I think Tua would be a great fit to go to a place like Atlanta with a really juiced up skill cast and a good offensive line and Kevin Stefanski. Look, they drafted Dylan Gabriel in the top 100 last year in the draft as a lefty undersized quarterback, right? So like Tua at his best, not even from like a physical standpoint, but just like, I'm going to execute the offense. Stefanski's another one of those coaches that wants it run the way he calls it. So I think in that kind of environment, Tua might be a better fit, even if the athletic ceiling is nowhere near where it would be before, to execute a concept with consistency than what Kyler is. But, that was the hard part. And that was what was so irreconcilable with Tua last year was he stopped trusting and executing the concepts as they were called. And that's what led to a lot of the ugly reps, because when that doesn't happen for him, he just doesn't have anything else to tap into to make himself right on plays.
That's a great way to put it. And yeah, that's what Kyler Murray does. I mean, amidst the chaos, and we'll see how this shakes out. It's going to be a lot of fun with the quarterback situation here and what the Dolphins end up doing, but something's going to happen here really soon with Tua. Obviously, it's probably be within the next week or so. We'll hear after the Kyler Murray news drops, and we'll check that out. But it's been busy around the league. Trey Hendrickson is free from the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's looking at a $50 million deal over a couple of years. That might reset the market a little bit for the edge rushers, and it's good news for a lot of guys out there looking for those paydays. And, the Kyler Murray thing, a lot of teams looking for QBs, and interesting, Stephon Diggs apparently going to be released by the Patriots as well. So some big names out there. And one team, and we'll pick up on this on the other side too, that hasn't had a draft pick in the top 10 since 2013 at number 9 this year, the Kansas City Chiefs, in a rebuild, traded McDuffie, and they have 8 draft picks now. So Kansas City in rebuilding mode as well. And to our point, we think that's going to be a theme in this year's draft, at least early on. Trade down, stockpile picks, and win the middle rounds. Can the Dolphins do that? We'll hit on that and more on the other side as we wrap it up on your Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Former Dolphins defensive lineman Jeff Zgonina, ultimate Dolphins insider Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins podcast, along with me, Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries, and I will tell you what, one more segment left here in the show. It's been a busy, really busy offseason so far. To recap a little bit of what we've talked about today here on the show, and of course, you can go back and watch it or listen to it anytime you want. We're live on YouTube. Then we finish. We upload, you download Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and then, of course, Roku and Tegna TV affiliates around the country that run the show as well. So wherever you're watching or listening to us, thank you so much for helping make us the #1 sports podcast network and the number 10 channel on that network across all of our platforms. All right, guys, big things popping with the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the sale, $125 million, #1 off the field again. A lot of momentum for the new regime. John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, the entire new coaching staff. And the last one left is Tua, Kyle. And we've talked about this a lot here on the show. He's going to be gone soon. Obviously, we know that it's not going to be a redo for Tua here in Miami. So when do you, if I'm asking you on your gut, Kyle, when do you think the Tua news is going to drop?
I think, predictively speaking, the most likely outcome is that they'll announce something probably at the beginning of the league year, which is either between Monday and Wednesday next week. It really seems like they are intent on trying to squeeze every ounce of a possibility for something to manifest for a trade. And the numbers there are tough, because if you're trading him when the league year starts this month, it's $54 million plus whatever money you eat. So if you eat $20 million of a $54 million salary, it's $74 million dead cap. So you're going to lose $20 million against cap to do that. So I think they'll take this thing down to the wire, predictively speaking. It's not how I would handle it. I would just, move some money around and carry him through June, and then either find a trade partner or release him after June 1st with a little bit more cap flexibility with this fixed expense with his salary that you're going to have to pay one way or another. But that sounds like, with all of the reporting that's coming out on the path, that, the post June 1st designated cut probably at the beginning of next week. Maybe it's a Friday afternoon news dump this week. But I'd expect probably in the next 7 days.
It'd be interesting. And obviously, we talk about Quinn Ewers a lot, and the work that he's putting in could be the opportunity of a lifetime for him. And the Malik Willis situation looking more and more bleak. Kyle, you've written about this a few times, the price tag with the number of teams that have jumped into the fray, that every single time that happens, it just pushes him a little further away from reality for Miami.
Oh, it's funny. It's starting to swing. The pendulum's swinging the other way now. So it is funny how it was like, so his agency's athletes first, and they do a phenomenal job of maximizing their talents, values, and they do a great job with kind of the information war. And, a lot of these reports, foregone conclusion, 30 plus million, this, that, the other thing. The last couple of days, some of the big network TV folks have kind of nudged it back down towards the Justin Fields contract total of 20 million per. So it's funny. We're getting a little closer. Look, the two teams that were most directly tied to Willis going into the combine were the Cardinals and the Dolphins. And both those GMs went up in front of the meeting, were asked about him, and they went, nice player. We'll see. Like, they're not willing to give that satisfaction of desperation. So at the end of the day, very small sample size. We'll see. I do think some team is going to blink, but it's not as foregone conclusion today as it was 72 hours ago or 48 hours ago, which is just funny how we get closer to the deadline. A little bit more information, a couple more people start talking. It's like, I don't know, like maybe he's not going to get like the most guaranteed dollars per pass attempt in the history of mankind, which is what it felt like it was trending there for a couple weeks.
Timing is everything, right? Timing is everything. But when you look at the past and guys like that, I mean, it's a crapshoot. It really is. I mean, I think of guys like Matt Castle, right? And he had much more of a body of work in New England than obviously Willis had in Green Bay. And I hate to throw Castle's name out there every time. The guy's probably just chilling, enjoying his life, but that's an example of how it didn't always work out for a guy who, Garoppolo was another one. And those guys were both obviously Brady's backups. But to me, just to reiterate one more time, guys, I think Kyler Murray for all those teams for $1.3 million on the minimum, just taking advantage of a trash organization and a terrible mistake that they made. And by the way, the Cardinals flagship, Arizona Sports, I was just checking out what they're doing with this. And they think that Miami's the second in terms of the list for Kyler Murray. His destination being Miami is number 2 on their list of most likely destinations. The first one's the Jets, Jets.
Well, I can see that. The Jets need a quarterback too now.
Yeah, the market's always there for a QB, Kyle. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, even when you think it's not there, that just has a way of opening up, and QBs are always going to get their money, and teams are always going to be looking for a QB1.
Yeah, you either have one definitively or you don't, right? And I think it's only the last couple of years you've seen some of these reclamation projects, and Sam Darnold being obviously a Super Bowl winning quarterback and how bad he was in New York, right? And then he goes to Carolina, and it's him and Baker Mayfield, and they can't get anything productive out of either one of those two guys. And then they go to a couple different franchises, and lo and behold, they didn't forget how to play football. They were just in bad situations. So Arizona is certainly up there on that list, I think. Now, I think Kyler has his own sins for how he conducted himself in Arizona and how hard he applied himself. But Arizona, you certainly look at kind of the way that they transitioned from Rosen to Kyler and how they used their first-round picks under Steve Keim, and kind of the way that their feedback from the NFLPA report card stuff is. It's the opposite of glowing reviews for that organization. So I'm sure somebody's taking a look at that, Gries, as you pointed out, and they're saying, hey, maybe with a better infrastructure and some better relationships, maybe it can click into place, because he is physically gifted as a thrower, right? He's got that baseball background. He's very athletic. You could do a whole lot worse.
Yeah, you could do a whole lot worse. And in a year where you're going to say, hey, we're going to be not a throwaway year, but a rebuilding year, you might catch lightning in a bottle with him, and he could be a guy who ends up winning comeback player of the year. He's got the skills to do it if you put him in the right place. And again, I reiterate, coming from the worst organization in the history of professional sports, or at least top 3 to 5 in Arizona. I think they have someone put in the chat, and it's true, 6 playoff wins. You know what I'm saying? And Kurt Warner had 3 of them. Your guy, Kurt Warner.
That's right.
And shout out to Dick Vermeil, by the way. I just watched Invincible again last night, the movie about Vince Papale. I mean, what he did with Vince Papale set the table, Z, for what he did later on with Kurt Warner. I love Dick Vermeil.
Oh, who doesn't like Dick Vermeil?
Man, what a guy, right? What a coach. And the Eagles beat my Cowboys when I was little. I was a big Cowboys fan as a kid. And I remember the Eagles when they went and the Raiders beat them in the Super Bowl. Kenny King had the big play. It was 27-10. But the Cowboys lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game that year. Danny White and Ron Jaworski. And I'll never forget Dick Vermeil being the coach of that team. But then what he did in Kansas City and then with the Rams, just unbelievable with the Rams when you think about Dick Vermeil. Anyway, it's Gries, it's Z, it's Kyle wrapping it up here on the show. I'm just trying to think, guys. I mean, there's
what about just keep Zach Wilson?
Zach Wilson, the forgotten man.
He woke up feeling spicy today, huh?
Well, I'm just saying, we keep talking about these quarterbacks. I mean, he didn't get a fair shake down here. I mean,
Just anyone who the Jets draft with a high draft pick and it blows up in their face just could sign that.
I mean, Sam Darnold came from the Jets, didn't he?
Yep. Yes, he did.
I would agree with you, Z, though, as far as like fair shake. And Zach came down and signed a $6 million deal, and then we're last couple games of the year, and we're flipping to the rookie quarterback because we're trying to hit lightning in a bottle. And it felt like, that part of that was, hey, we need something to kind of catch for us here to save our jobs. Right. And even if Zach was going to come in and play, and if he played well, you were still going to have to re-sign him or try to reconcile re-signing him as compared to Ewers as the guy on the rookie contract with 3 years, and he's getting paid $1 million in each of the next 3 seasons. So he kind of alluded to that he kind of felt like he didn't get a fair shake. I'd be surprised if he'd be even interested in coming back because
I don't think he's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you got passed over, and I get all that, but again, new coordinator. Bobby was here last year, but it's a new setup, and again, looking for a quarterback. You know what I'm saying? You get rid of him, now you only have one in the room right now. You know, and you still got to keep bodies in there for competition and everything. Now, who knows? He might have saw enough, of the young kids saying, maybe I got a shot, and if you give him a halfway decent incentive contract, you never know. To me, that's, I would still kick the tires on it if I was, there as a GM guy and head coach, but I'm not. So, but that's my little 2 cents.
Kyle?
Kyle wants no part of it.
No, so I actually like the signing of Zach last year as the idea of it, right? I'm just trying to think of the guys that we know are out there amongst the free agents. Like it's pretty much Willis, and that's it. And that's why I said I think they'll trade for somebody, just because you have a chance potentially to do a pick swap, right? You got picks at, I'm not saying you trade one of these, but you got 75, 87, 90, 111, 149, I think, in the 5th round, and then a 7th round pick, right? As like not top 50 picks at your disposal. That should put you in play if you do a pick swap. Like you could take any one of those, depending on where the other team has their picks. And like, if it's 90 for an early 4, if a team wants like decent value, if you want to do the really low risk flip flop, you could trade the 5 for a 6 and go 5 and the player, or 5 for the 6 and a player. Right. And I look out across the league, and whether it's names like Tyson Bagent in Chicago, whether it's Will Levis in Tennessee, whether it's Spencer Rattler in New Orleans, who did some good things, but eventually got benched for Tyler Shuck, who they drafted in the top 40 last year. Anthony Richardson, I don't see a lot of hope for, but he's a name that I think you have to include in that conversation. Like, instead of signing somebody else on another free agent contract, I'd almost rather do the pick swap and get a guy. Well, most of those guys have several years of control left on their contracts. Like Rattler's got 2 years and he's owed like $2.5 million total. Like a swing of the bat like that, I think is a great opportunity for a guy who's started more, or Spencer Rattler has more pass attempts than Anthony Richardson and Malik Willis do combined as in their NFL careers. Spencer Rattler, he's been in the league for 2 years. And I thought he took a nice step from his rookie season to his second season. So as I'm just looking at, hey, what are some of the non-Malik Willis free agency options? I like names like Rattler and Willis and Bagent as the way to go. And I think you've got enough wiggle room with the picks to make something happen.
There you go.
As long as you get a pick back. You got to get a pick back. You can't just give a pick away. You got to come back with a lesser pick so you keep the same amount of picks. Keep the picks high.
Oh, that makes sense. That's Kyle Krabs. For more of that, make sure you keep watching Kyle, listening to him on your Locked On Dolphins podcast, wherever you are with us right now, watching, listening, downloading. If you're on a TV affiliate's website in middle America somewhere with Tegna and you're watching us, then we thank you very much, obviously, for helping us be the number 10 channel on the number 1 sports podcast network, and all that hard work from Kyle Krabs. And Kyle, I know you got a bunch of great stuff coming up. And by the way, I should just mention real quick as I lead these guys into their final thoughts and we get ready to go for the week. But in 1 week from today, our Wednesday show, 1 week from today will be 1 hour, Kyle, into free agency.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be fast and furious. I don't know for the Dolphins, but NFL news wide across the league, I'm sure that'll be it'll be quite the day.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm interested to see what happens, moving forward. I love the idea of Kyler Murray, as I said, in a Dolphins uniform. That's my final thought. Go get Kyler Murray. Get him now, and don't even look back. Go get him. He'll win the NFL Comeback Player of the Year in Miami next year, and you will have your quarterback for the foreseeable future in Kyler Murray. Z, that's my final thought.
I'm going to go play Powerball tonight. So the next team that wants to sell 1%, I'm taking it.
Wait, what's it up to, Z? It was like 287 million last.
Well, someone just won the Powerball. So what's the other one? Mega Millions. I'm gonna go play Mega Millions.
490 million. We could get like 3%, guys.
Buddy, you're gonna have a blank middle screen if I win that Mega Millions or Powerball.
He'll log in with his camera off and his mic muted.
I won't even log in. What are you talking about? I won't even tell you.
And I'm trying to figure out what's got better odds. Z winning the lottery or Kyler Murray winning Comeback Player of the Year in Miami. I'm not sure. That's my final thought here on the show.
That might be close, Kyle. That might be close on the odds. But, nothing ventured, nothing gained. To quote my guy Bruce Arians, no risk it, no biscuit, guys, right? This is the NFL. Teams don't win unless you take these kind of gambles and they pay off, man. It just doesn't.
Give it up, Gries. Give it up.
Well, a lot of movements coming. And by the way, a lot of receivers coming available. Trey Hendrickson's out there now. And the market's going to get flooded with guys like
Crosby trade.
Lattimore's out there from the Commanders. There's all kinds of stuff going on, man. And I know, Kyle, real quick before we go, you got some really great things coming our way on the channel.
Yeah, finishing up the next couple of days, the simulated offseason. Tomorrow's a 7-round mock draft. Friday's going to be 53-man roster projection for the 26th season and a 3-year snapshot of what the salary cap's going to look like with all the moves that I have recommended and what their contracts look like. And so it's a very comprehensive run through of one of the many, many, many iterations of the what if universe that exists out there for how the Dolphins could go about their business this offseason.
When's a front office going to steal you from us? We already talked about Z if he hits it or whatever. He's out of here. But when you're going to get that front office job, Kyle, that the fans are clamoring for in the chat?
That has even longer odds than Kyler or
Yeah, but hey, Kyle, make sure you do your salary cap projections. So after this year, after that, 1.3 for Murray, that he signs that big
right.
deal.
We'll have it budgeted for him to get the big dollar contract in 27.
Comeback Player of the Year deal, right?
Yep, you got it.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about that on the next episode and some of those scenarios. We might even have some answers by the time we get back with you guys next week. Big things about to start happening league-wide and with the Dolphins as the new era of Miami Dolphins football takes shape in the very beginning stages under John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley, and all of a sudden a lot more coins in the bank account of Stephen Ross, if only he could spend them on the team. All right, it's Gries and it's Kyle. We'll be back on Monday. Thank you for being here on your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and most importantly, the #1 sports podcast network. Keep your game tight and your mind right. We'll see you Monday.